inspiring leader and mentor, and his vision for value-based leadership has inspired so many minds across borders and across generations. We also have with us Ms. Yogita Ahuja, a dynamic corporate storyteller, leadership development coach, DEI and POSH consultant with over 20 years of experience. She's been designing impactful learning interventions across corporate, educational, and social impact sectors. As the founder and chief storyteller at Story Circle, Yogita blends storytelling, appreciative inquiry, and theater-based tools to drive culture building, employer branding, and leadership effectiveness for clients like Tata, Mahindra, Coca-Cola, Bosch, and many more. Yogita also happens to be a proud Soil alum, and we extend a warm welcome to you, Yogita. We also have with us Ms. Surbi Bajaj. She is an associate director with Mercer. Surbi is a seasoned HR professional with over 12 years of experience spanning both management consulting and industry roles. She has led global projects across HR transformation, talent assessment and development, employee experience, and organizational culture. She volunteers for NGOs, is fond of reading, writing, and public speaking, and Surbi is also a proud alum of Soil. So welcome you, Surbi.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. As the co-host for today's session, I'll be facilitating the discussion between our esteemed panelists. Just a gentle reminder to all the participants to please keep your mics muted at all times unless you've been asked to, for the question. And you please may use the chat box for any suggestions or reflections across the discussion. We shall try and weave them wherever possible in it. Now, it's with my absolute pleasure to invite Anil sir to share his opening remarks and set the tone for our conversation today. Over to you, Anil sir.
Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadguru Brahma Vidvaram. That was a prayer to my spiritual teacher, Swami Chinmayananda. And let's take a moment to pause and silently thank all the people in our lives that have contributed to where we stand today. Think of parents, teachers, colleagues, friends, because of whom we have been able to reach wherever we are. And let's say silently thank you to them. It's been extremely exhilarating, I would say. When our co-founder and board member Arun Jain surprised me by saying, Anil, you keep on interviewing all these amazing leaders from all over the world and you keep sharing their stories, but we want to turn the table on you. We want you to be interviewed. And he said, so that's how this series was born. And, thank you to everybody who's been part of the journey, who've been co-travelers. And so I just wanted to say thank you to each one of you, because the presence of each one of you in person during the Zoom session, but also later, many of you leave comments, many of you become part of the conversation, and that's important. So with these opening comments, Pragya, over to you. You may start the process of asking questions and facilitate the process. Yeah.
So I would like to invite Ms. Yogita in the beginning to have your question first, and we again proceed with discussion. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pragya. And what a pleasure to have all of you here. It's, as I said the other day, it's like homecoming. So, Anil, thank you. Since this session is on appreciative inquiry, first and foremost, when you asked us to think of all the teachers and people who impacted our lives, thank you. I'd like to begin this session and my question with a thank you and deep appreciation for how you've impacted me and my life. So my question to you is that, both from my experience as an alum of Soil and also as an ex-colleague, I have seen you practice appreciative inquiry day in and day out. And I know even before I came into the picture, you've been practicing it for decades now. And they say when you have to practice appreciative inquiry, you have to practice deep listening. And that's exactly where the essence of my question lies. is it, in the humdrum of today's lives, the noise, there's so much noise going on inside one's head. So, is it really, really possible to suspend our judgment and deeply listen to the other person while conducting an appreciative inquiry? And, maybe, as you always say, listen with the ears of a child. So, how easy is that? So, that's the first part of my question. And number two, once you explain that to us, if you could also give us some tips around, how in organizations we enhance our own listening skills and suspend that judgment so that we can really be present in the moment and listening to the other person and their story.
No, thank you. Thank you, Yogita. I want to share a very powerful story which was profoundly transformational for me. When I was serving as the head of HR of Aisha, there was a very bright PhD in engineering we hired in our R&D center.
Mhm.
He had done his PhD from Imperial College in London. He was a brilliant designer. And for whatever reason, this person was finding it difficult to fit into the organization and the team. And I was continuously getting feedback that he's not quite fitting in. And, one day he called me and he said our R&D center was in Ballabgarh and he said he wants to come and see me. And he came to meet me and he had a cup of tea and kept talking this and that, but he never got around to what I thought he had come to talk to me about, but I didn't want to rush him. So I just kept quiet. And then he just exchanged some pleasantries and then left my room. This happened several times more over the next few months. Till one evening, it was beginning of winter in Delhi, and our office was in a place, in the building called Urdu Ghar in Rouse Avenue in Delhi. This person again came to meet me at the end of the day. So it was past 6, and in November, it gets dark by that time. And the lights went out, and we did not have the services of a generator at that time in that building. So then I told Kameshwar, the person who used to give us tea and coffee, I said, Kameshwar ji, jara wo candle le aiye. So he came and lit the candle and served tea. So I just kept quiet. Then this person slowly began to speak and he said, Anil, do you know why I have really come to meet you? I said, go ahead. Please tell me, I am here. He said, ever since I've joined, I find it very difficult to work here in Ballabgarh in this R&D center because people here speak very loudly. I have lived all my life in England where people speak very softly. And in England, I had no trouble. But here in Haryana, in Ballabgarh, when the way people talk to each other, the way they interact with each other, I don't understand what they are speaking. Then I say something and they begin to laugh. And I'm really struggling. I said, okay. I said, you were describing that the people here speak differently from what you are used to, etc. So I just listened to him and just mirrored what he was telling me. Again, there was silence. Then he said, do you know really what my problem is? I said, yes. He said, when I was a little kid, my parents used to fight with each other a lot. I was the only child. I was in the room next and they would shout at each other, they would raise their voice. And then, as a little kid in the next room, I used to tell myself, I should not listen to this. I should not listen to this. He said, that impacted me so much that, as I grew older, I realized that anytime people raise their voices, I can't listen. I can't hear. I've gone to the top doctors in India and overseas, and they tell me there is nothing wrong with your ears. They're perfectly fine, but it's a permanent damage that has happened to me. And I mean, that's my problem. I don't know how to discuss this. I can't tell this to people not to raise their voices. So I feel like a misfit. I'm not sure whether I really belong to this culture and this organization and to the real corporate world. And he talked to me for about an hour. I'm just trying to summarize. I was just thanking myself that I was not judging him. He had come to meet me several times. I never asked that, why are you coming and taking my time and not discussing what you have come here to discuss? Because each time he would preface in a telephone call to say, there's something very important, I want to come and talk to you. It was a very important lesson, but I also realized that after listening to this person and understanding his issue, I was not sure whether I had the competence to actually help him. Nor did I give him any advice to say he should go and see a psychiatrist or anybody like that, because that was, I thought, something that I ought not to give it a label. So I was just there with him for his understanding without offering any advice. It's a pity that a few months later he decided to move on anyway, and that's the last I heard about him. I don't know what happened to him later. He was a brilliant engineer. But this movement that happened to me when I was a young head of HR for Aisha always remained with me to say, we have all kinds of things. We put people in their boxes, we judge them, we say performance rating is like this, doesn't know how to get along with people, all kinds of things we say about people. But what really is behind all the external behavior, we never have the opportunity even to realize that. And we very often do not recognize what happens. So I think when you say in the hustle and bustle of today, in the busyness of today, people's mind is all full of things. See, people's minds is full of three things today. One, it is full of distraction because of social media and technology and always being connected. The second, people are trying to do multiple things, and the support systems with nuclear families where people are not able to concentrate, where they both, in our educated families, particularly both husband and wife are working well, not so educated families as well, both are working. And in the slums area where soil runs a school, as you know, both parents go to work and small little kids, 1 year, 2 year, 3-year-old are just left in the jhuggi. So when people are having that, they are alone, there is an impact of all this things happening, all that mind. So their mind is so full of this that I'm not sure that I have people that I can trust. I don't know whether the people are there for me to really listen to me. So with this kind of a psychological isolation that we have brought upon ourselves by being over connected through technology, but having no human connection, and our mind full of all kinds of distractions as well as anxiety because of lack of support, in such a moment, our internal environment inside our mind is not really conducive to that deep listening. And that's why appreciative inquiry becomes not just a solution, but it shows the way, because by practicing this positive psychology approach, we create hope in our own hearts. We create, and while doing that, when you genuinely enjoy someone else, when you genuinely pay attention, when you truly try to understand others, it makes the other person feel understood, it makes the other person feel appreciated, and it makes you in the process feel very good about yourself, because all of a sudden, when you try to appreciate others, many times you recognize that the problems that you were focusing on, thinking that you are having all these issues, when you really listen to others and you try to appreciate them. But one thing more I would like to say, and then I'll take a pause. Many times when we do appreciative inquiry dialogue, especially in the corporate sector, we find that when we ask people, when were you and your team at your best? What has enabled you to be at your best? Very often people don't begin by talking about positives, because they begin by saying, before we come to that, let me tell you what my issue is. And we try to tell them, no, let's focus on the positive. No, we'll talk to the positive, but first listen to me. What? It's because they haven't had a chance to being really listened to. and their hearts are eager for somebody to just listen to them without any judgment, even though it seems to be an external facilitator or consultant who is professionally getting hired to do this work, but they feel like that. So I think it's very important for us to understand that this process of positive psychology and appreciative inquiry empowers not only others, it empowers yourself. And it makes you feel very good about yourself. And then it creates a field inside yourself that by practicing positive psychology, you are getting happier and you are becoming more developed. In the process, of course, you are serving the well being of others. So it's a very beautiful thing. It's a win 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 aspect. The person feels a sense of satisfaction and growth personally. The other person who's being listened to feels more empowered. And then the team with which we are working together, they all come together. And when you create these kinds of conversations, it builds the capacity in the organization and the community for everybody to be uplifted. So this is what I just thought I'll share some opening comments here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's really beautiful, sir. And your works completely resonate with one of the Yale professors of psychology, where she talks, Laurie Santos, and she talks about that how gratitude is, sharing your gratitude is one of the easiest way to make yourself happy. So definitely, it's on the same lines where we appreciative inquiry is placed. Now, I'd like to invite Ms. Surbi to share her question, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pragya, and thanks for the opportunity, Anil. And let me start with my appreciation as well for Anil, who's been my teacher, my mentor, my guide, also one of my first bosses when I worked with him. So he helped me lay the foundation of my career in HR consulting. And Yogita was interestingly my first manager, and I have really fond memories of not just studying at Soil, but working at Soil as well. So thank you for inviting us today. Anil, so I'm of course very familiar with appreciative inquiry, and it's something that I use as well. But it would be really interesting to understand from you in an organizational context, and especially a difficult one, where there is probably a situation where people are resistant, or there is, a business outcome that needs to be achieved. In your career, have you used appreciative inquiry to, say, achieve a certain business goal or turn around a situation which was not getting solved through conventional methods?
Yeah, let me share the story of Mawana Sugar, which actually we have also published as a paper as part of a book on OD, which is read in India. And I also taught a class on this in ISB in the earlier batches because they made that as a part of the case for ISB's students. Siddharth Sriram, he came to me many years back. We had studied Siddharth's company, which was SIEL, when I started my consulting career as head of Aisha Consulting. And along with A.T. Carney, we did a study. And there was a cover story in Business Today on the top performing companies in India, where the return on capital employed consistently, if it is higher than the cost of capital, consistently, A.T. Carney called that as a best performing company. And we were understanding how come SIEL was amongst the top 5 companies those days who were on the cover story in Business Today. This is now early 90s. Now turn the clock onwards to 2003, 2004. And Siddharth comes to me and says, Anil, I went to Vikram Lal, his second cousin, who was the chairman of Aisha, and who was his friend, telling Vikram, I need help. I made a mess out of my company and my life. And will you tell your consulting business, Aisha Consulting, to help me? Vikram listened to him and then said, even though Anil is now running his own company, Grow Talent Company, and he is no longer working in Aisha, I would suggest you go and talk to Anil about it, because somewhere it seems to me that you may get something more from a conversation with him. So Siddharth came to meet me. And he was very honest. And later on, we published it as a case study. So it's also mentioned in the story. He said, Anil, I did major mistakes in my life. I let the business go down. My interest changed. I was more interested in some social activities. I got involved in something else. My marriage came under trouble. I developed a relationship with this other woman. And the whole company is now about to be, it's completely bankrupt. It's gone down the hill. And I'm in serious trouble because all our assets are hypothecated to the bank. And this company, which was a good company at one time, is in serious trouble. So I've come to you. I'm not sure whether you have any particular answer for me, but I've come to you out in this context to say, what can we do? So I told Siddharth, before we start working with you, I would like to go and meet different people inside your workplace. I and my colleague would come and spend a few days talking to your people. So we went to all their factories, we talked to their union leaders, and we talked to people at different levels. And very interestingly, we thought that people were full of stories about the past where the company was a great company at one time, and they were very sad by what had happened in the recent years. That means there was a degree of belongingness and pride for the ones who had still cared to stay in the company. And yet they were very saddened by what had happened in the company in the last few years. But we asked them whether they feel that this company can really be turned around. And many of them said, if we bring back the focus on what our core strengths are, and if we bring back the conversation on what we were able to achieve, and if we were able to learn from our own past, this is not such a complicated business. But we needed to involve the farmers, the cane growers, we needed to involve the local community where these plants were operating, and we needed to involve everybody. So yes, we designed a very powerful appreciative inquiry-based change program there, which the whole thing is mentioned in great detail, but I'll just talk about 3 parts of it. We organized the workforce into what we call different study mission teams. And every team had people at different levels, from shop floor workers to supervisors to senior managers. They went and visited different companies. Like one team went to Infosys, one team went to Jet Airways those days, one team went to Honda, and so on and so forth. They would travel together. They would share stories with each other. We insisted they travel by train, bring food from their home, which they would share, and our consultant would travel with them. Share a room in a hotel together. So a blue-collar worker and a senior manager are sharing a hotel room in a simple hotel. And then share the responsibility of learning from these companies. The whole hope was to find out the positive in others and then come back and say to yourself, if they can do it, why can't we? And invoke the positive in your own company. And we designed a whole ritual. People from different plant locations, families came to see these teams off. And before they went to the local mosque, Gurudwara, and temple to pray. It's like they are setting off on a pilgrimage. And when they came back, we designed this fantastic methodology on large systems change, in which we encouraged them to share stories of what they had learned and connect it to the positives in their own company. Meanwhile, we had started doing the appreciative inquiry process and trained the organization to do appreciative inquiry. So every day on the notice boards of the factories, stories were getting published on when were we at our best and what has enabled us to be at our best. And what have we learned out of that? And how can we leverage our own strengths and positives to transform the organization for the better? There is somebody's device making an echo. So, yeah. So, this whole conversation, I think Uday's device need to be put off. So, this whole conversation of involving people, of learning missions, study missions, coming back, sharing, connecting it to their own positives, and then saying, what can we do to transform? And then, of course, in the second, once people were ready, this was like preparing the soil through appreciative inquiry on bringing back hope. Second part was then involving them to think about how to get out of the current situation to make the change happen. So there, of course, the whole principle of large system change, where we involve the local community, the farmers' representatives, NGO leaders, suppliers, besides farmers, the other suppliers. So it was a very powerful process of getting people to first realize the goodness within them, then with collective involvement, envision how they could leverage that in the future, then look at the current reality on what were the specific things to move from the desired situation to where they were today, and work on specific projects and teams, like projects to improve the yield, project to improve maintenance of the factory, project to improve the supply chain, and so on and so forth. And of course, teach them the tools through our consultants who would teach them problem solving, quality analysis, and many other things. You will be amazed that in about 18 months' time of this whole using the appreciative inquiry transformation process, the company broke all past records of productivity and yields since its inception. And within 2 years, the company got turned around. It became cash positive. The bankers and others once again developed confidence in the company. And a company that had been declared as sick was turned around. And I think I would give credit to Siddharth Shriram. I would give a lot of credit to his son, Krishna Shriram, who's now chairman of the group. I would give a lot of credit to the people who still believed in the company and stayed there and trusted the process. So I think it's a very, very powerful story. And I can tell you many others, but I think this is the most dramatic, from coming out of the ashes to something which became, in a comparatively short period of time, the company came out of its difficulties. So I think this is a very powerful story of appreciative inquiry in action.
Thank you, Anil.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll take the opportunity to ask the question to you now. And so you have often spoken about the influence of Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda in your life. And sir, if you look at our spiritual gurus, more than appreciating us, they are largely about asking difficult questions to us and, showing us the mirror. So my question to you is, sir, that how do we strike a balance between, appreciating them at the same point in time asking difficult questions so that they really work and improve?
I'll tell another story. I was those days heading the factory at Faridabad of Aisha, the heading operations of that factory. And a young 27-year-old put in the plant by the chairman of Aisha saying, Anil, you are good at advising others on managing people. Go and manage them yourself now. And I got into a very difficult situation because Pranab Mukherjee, finance minister, announced credit squeeze. There were difficulties in sales and all kinds of issues happened at that time. Meanwhile, I was also the secretary of Chinmaya Mission in Delhi, and we were to organize a large Gita Gyan Yagya, as we call it, Swami Chinmayananda's week-long program in the Asian Games village in Delhi, where we had booked the hall. 2,500 people were to come every day, and some of the ardent followers and intellectuals. The President of India was to inaugurate and all that. Somebody went and told Swami Chinmayananda this Anil Sachdev has been too busy in his job in Aisha, and he's not been able to find the time to do effective planning and work for this yagya. So he wrote a very difficult letter to me, which I have never experienced that sense of anger from the Guru. Because, one was only used to his always being very loving and very kind and right to our whole family. I took the very next flight and I reached Mumbai, the ashram in Mumbai, and I just touched his feet and sat down. And he looked at me. Yes. So I started explaining all the work that we had done. I showed him all the posters we had developed, all the communication, the work we had done by, collecting revenues and donations for our, for people to help us to organize the yagya and so on and so forth. I also told him that that whoever has spoken to you has given you the right feedback, that I have been going through a pretty rough period professionally, but yet with thanks to my wife, thanks to my family and their support, I have been also working on weekends, and we have been doing our best. And I explained the whole thing. So Swamiji looked at everything and he said, now I know who the person behind this criticism is. So, and he also blessed me to say that, you've come with an open heart. You also talked about the problem that you had. You felt you have completely been transparent. You also told me the issues you could have done better earlier. But then, I think fortunately, his love for you was, I can't describe to you. Love of the mother is the most divine love. But the love from God, or what you experience as the spiritual love, is like all the mothers in the universe. Their collective love, if you can channel it, you can experience that through the love of your spiritual teacher. So he blessed me. I went back, he came, we did the yajna. It was one of the finest yajnas, and he wrote to me a beautiful letter. Neera, my wife, just found it the other day, and I've asked Tillai, and if Tillai is listening, you have to send me the framed letter, Tillai. I asked him to frame it because I want to put it in my office. It's a precious possession, because in that he wrote that it was one of the finest yajnas ever organized by the mission. And Anil, Sachdev, you have been the finest secretary we've had in the Chinmaya mission there. So I think the full of appreciation, full of praise. But I think I just thank myself that the criticism that came my way, thanks to whoever was the person who sent it through him to me, was very important at that time for me to understand that I should not allow the circumstances of my professional difficulties to come in the way of the sankalp or the desire to serve, that both can be done equally well. You only have to look within, and you have to look for grace, because see, there are situations in your life, and there I want to connect it to gratitude and to the larger concept of gratitude. See, we find it very difficult to express gratitude because we get stuck in our ego. Many of us, we use the term, I am a self-made man. I've never understood what does it actually mean. Who is self-made? Can you do a single thing in your life without the help of others? And then, if you don't acknowledge the learning you have had from others, including the ones who put you into a challenging or difficult position, including the people who gave some pain to you at some moment because that was a growth opportunity for you, if you do not feel that beautiful aspect of saying that I have really grown as a person because I have gone through these difficulties, I have faced these challenges and have moved to the next level, I think the biggest gratitude we can feel is when we learn to have the power of what I call surrender. There will be many things in our life we are inspired to do, many big projects that will excite us. There are many young people who are listening to this. You will have many dreams to make the world better. I would say, and there will be many other people who will tell you this cannot be done because they can't do it themselves. They will tell you, you can't do it. They will point out the obstacle, they'll point out the difficulty. But at that moment, when you are trying to do something big, if you say that this is the cause that has the power, it's not me. And if you truly invoke the collective consciousness, the collective faith, and if you surrender then to the cause and to that energy which is behind looking after the well-being of all, that faith, that devotion. So our teacher always said, the reward of faith is that when you have faith, you can almost visualize what will happen. And then when you surrender to the power of the collective consciousness, and if you honor that intention of everybody who is going to get involved, that image that you had visualized, when you choose to be an instrument and invoke the grace of the Lord and the well-being of all as the cause, and get everybody genuinely involved in a spirit of genuine cooperation, I think at that particular moment, then you realize it's not about you, you are not the doer. And then you feel deeply grateful when magical things begin to happen, because you are surprised from where you begin to get help. You are surprised as to how people show up in your life to help you. And then you realize that, when you have gone past the ego and you have surrendered and you have genuine faith in the power of what you are trying to do, with that bhavna of seva and spirit, I think beautiful things happen to you. And that then really makes you a better person. And then you realize that it is the collective, it is the effort, and it's the divine consciousness that is blessing you with that kind of energy. So that's the other thing I want to say.
Right, sir. And so you often share the Upanishads, teachings from Upanishad, where you talk about the power of the discerning eye. Could you share that as well here at this moment?
Many people in this audience may be familiar with a saying from the Upanishad, which says that there is no sound there is no sound which cannot be channeled into music. There is no plant which cannot be converted into medicine. And there is no human being without any talent. All it requires is a yojaka. All it requires is the power of the discerning eye for a leader to recognize. In other words, every human being has talent. Just today, Visti Banaji is in the room, our earlier colleague and my first supervisor in Tata Motors, V.S. Mahesh, who's no more. His wife wrote to me about this visually impaired friend of Mahesh called Venki. Venki is one of the finest teachers in communication. I remember visiting V.S. Mahesh's house in University of Buckingham, maybe 25 years after I had met Venki in Tata Motors in one workshop in 1975. And here I am, 25 years later. I knock on Mahesh's door at his house, because I had not told him I'm coming to visit him. And I called on, Mahesh, are you at home? And there's a voice that comes to me that I said, the voice is familiar. He said, is that Anil Sachdev from Tata Motors? This is a visually impaired guy who is one of the finest teachers of communication. So why am I bringing this story? To say that somewhere Venki would have got the self-worth that, okay, I have not got eyesight, but I can still find the goodness and talent in myself, and I can recognize my uniqueness, and I can find a way to serve. So I think no matter how difficult the situation of a person is, no matter how difficult you feel that the person you can never say that a person is good for nothing, because when you say words like that, it means you haven't looked far enough, you haven't looked deep enough, and you don't recognize. And it's possible you are not the right kind of person to discern that. You are not the right kind of person to recognize that, but there would be someone else who would see something in that person, and there would be an environment in which that person would grow. So I think this is, of course, seems like a very idealistic situation, because in most companies, people very quickly are put into performance improvement plans, and there are the harsh realities of performance criteria, and but sometimes we give up too easily on people. Sometimes we and leaders do not take the genuine interest to getting to appreciate the person and genuinely trying to understand what can be done to get the best out of this person. Beyond the labels of performance appraisal and ratings and rewards, that conversation with an openness of a heart we don't have. And I think the world would become a better place that at least if we make a genuine attempt to understand and appreciate others, and understand what can take them from where they are to where they potentially could be. So that's what I would like to say.
Okay, so I guess the time has come that we can open the discussion with the participants as well. And I believe Mr. Anil Grover, so you have a question.
Yeah, Sudipto, go ahead.
Yes, Anil sir, could you please, Mr. Grover, could you please first ask a question as you'd given it in the chat as well? And
Sure.
then we move to Mr.
Okay,
Sudipto.
sure. I thought Sudipto had raised his hand, but go ahead.
Right.
Ask.
Sure. So Anil, can you give us example, a story from your experience
Yes.
working with the C-suite leadership, the CXOs? And we know that often the dynamics that is beneath the surface, the invisible, the undercurrents that are there, which cause a certain dysfunction, how through appreciative inquiry in your work, move to trust and collaboration.
It's very interesting. When you begin a community building effort using appreciative inquiry, when you open the conversation, first all the negatives will come out. When you create a space, a lot of issues will come out, conflicts will get surfaced. Some leaders who are sponsoring such an initiative, at that moment, they get a bit concerned. And some of them even give up the effort, saying, oh, Anil, you told us to do this, but instead of discussing positives, people have started talking about each other. They have started raising conflicts. So I say to people, and I always give the story of the Samudra Manthan, that when Samudra Manthan was done, first the Visha came out, right? And then, just like Lord Shiva had to drink the poison, and Parvati, thank God, caught hold of her neck, and therefore, the poison remained there. But that's a metaphor that there is always a conflict between the head and the heart, and the throat, which is equidistant. I mean, the head says this is necessary, the heart is still not ready, or the heart wants it, but the head is not convinced. This conflict happens in people, it happens in teams as well. So when you create a space, one has to have the patience that initially some unpredictable thing would happen. And it's okay. It's like a catharsis that psychologists talk about. But once you let that pass, and if you have real, genuine interest in serving the community and making change happen for the better, I think bit by people get the idea. And then when you form a team of people who are genuinely inspired to make a difference, and you get them together and empower them, and when you find the right people you match the right questions with the right people. I think this is the role of the people who are sponsoring this kind of an effort, that you create an architecture in that space where you are consciously inviting the right people to have conversations around the right questions. Once that happens, then you in any case, as the person who were instrumental in starting this, I think then you truly understand that the power of the process takes over, because now there are people who are taking responsibility and they genuinely care to bring about a difference. But yes, initially what you talked about happens a lot, and one has to be prepared for that.
Is there any example that comes to your mind as you describe this?
I will not take the name of the company for obvious reasons, but there was an example of a large multinational company, and the Indian arm of that multinational company, where we were introducing a large-scale transformation program using total quality management. And when the first workshop of the leadership team took place, some of these things began to happen. And I started giving examples of some other companies, how they had gone past that phase. The managing director of this company got so upset with me. He said, are you trying to tell us that our company is not good enough? Are you trying to say that those companies are much better? It really, he was really provoked by my well-intentioned sort of attempt to give some examples saying you could possibly learn from them. I realized, and I learned a lot out of this. And in fact, I replaced myself on that assignment. Instead of me being the project leader, I asked a colleague to take over that relationship. And of course, with second person also, there was trouble. Then we found the third person who took over, and then the work went on quite well, because I realized that sometimes these things will happen. Sometimes people will not trust your intention because they don't know you well, and it's better not to challenge their understanding of the situation. And I told my colleagues, I'm going to sack myself from this assignment because, for some reason, this guy has got some chemistry issue with me. And his head of HR came and told me this guy feels a bit insecure that his people are giving you more attention than they're giving their own CEO. So it's better. And I think what you have done is the right thing. You better not handle this relationship. So I think one has to invent new ways of serving people when these kinds of issues happen, and one shouldn't allow one's ego to come in the way, and one has to respect that that person is coming from that perspective. I have invoked some kind of a chord in his heart, which without my intention being like that, but then one has to honor the consequences of what happens. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, request Mr. Mandal to please put forth your question.
Yeah, thank you, Pragya. Anil, when you started with that story about Aisha R&D Center, it so resonated with my, thought process. But I am also going through a little bit of frustration, so probably I'd like to, understand from you. See, what you are talking about, in terms of deep listening, touching the heart, spending time. Today, I see there is a dearth of HR professionals who are actually focusing on these aspects of, skills, touching emotion, heart, which actually, as a human resource professionals, we should do. And if you look back, that our whole education system, of course, soil is little different ever since you started, I know, but rest of the all, MBA institutes focusing so much of analytical skill, technical skill, and when you come back to work, one is that, of course, with the generation it is happening, you use that word psychological isolation. At the same time, coming back to work also, it is happening so much of technology. People are forgetting their HR skill. They're only doing accounts management and thing. And those who are trying to do things differently, they are somehow getting isolated. And people are thinking this is not relevant. So it's a very frustrating situation because you need to operate in an ecosystem where the whole ecosystem is moving in one direction, and we are talking about something which is positive. So how, I mean, do we accept this situation and try to change? I mean, uh, you understand what's my
Yeah, no, I appreciate that a lot because yes, I think sometimes the pendulum swings the other way because the HR people were being told you're not understanding much of business. To become an effective business partner, you have to be a strategy enabler. You have to understand the business. You have to understand money and numbers, and you should have the nose for money and commercial acumen, and you must understand those. So all that is well taken criticism that sometimes HR was not being cognizant of the business realities, and that's fine. But in our attempt to become effective business partners and try to be the people who are enabling strategy to happen, if we forget our main role is to get the best out of people. And if we forget our main job and start now pretending to be more like a finance person, trying to look at cost and trying to take pride. See, I sacked so many people at only this much cost. I really feel sorry for the HR people who even write resumes to say I laid off 1,000 people at an effective cost. I really wonder what's happened to their soul, because if they are taking pride in sacking people, it's something. So I think that's an extraordinary, an HR person who feels happy about laying off and sacking people for the sake of business reasons. I mean, should really ask yourself the question, why did you join this noble profession called HR? Why are you that in that profession? But let me try to build on that. See, technology is something very important today. For example, using AI, you can have an AI mentor, an AI coach, and an AI coach will give you some very good answers. As you work more with the AI coach, it begins to understand you better and begins to make sure that you get the replies that you require in a particular situation. So it's a very good tool. an AI mentor is devoid of any biases. And therefore, when they go and talk to an internal HR person, they're always concerned, will this person go and talk to my boss? Can I really be open to the person? Whereas with the AI coach or a mentor, there is no such fear. So all those are important things, and AI can be used a lot. And I think we should learn from that, and we should also deploy it. All of us, use AI, etc. But now there is another question. This part, we need to spend quiet time with ourselves and say, what kind of leaders are we? See, many years back, I was asked these three very powerful questions, which I think were very, very transformational. The first question was, how do you experience other people? What are the assumptions in your mind when you are working with others? The second question was, how do people experience you when they work with you? Which, of course, is the whole thing about EQ, 360 feedback, and all that. But the third most powerful question, which I had not heard anybody asking, how do people experience themselves in your presence? How do people experience themselves in your? If an HR person has the highest integrity, has the highest authenticity, and genuinely cares for people, if the person has all this, people in their presence will feel that they can achieve anything. Whereas there are some others in whose presence you would feel small. So I think I referred to this in one of the earlier episodes, the same example, to say this is a very important part for HR people to do our inner work, to say, what kind of leader am I growing into and evolving into? And what kind of space am I creating for people to be the best and authentic versions of themselves? And how am I enabling an environment for people to realize the highest in them? So we say serving the highest common good. The highest common good. If we keep that phrase in mind, I think many beautiful things will happen in our life. Okay? I think.
Right. Mr. Krishnan has his hands raised, please.
Yeah.
Could go ahead with the question.
Yes.
Hi, Anil, how are you? Thanks
Hi,
very much
Murli.
for sharing your insights, and it was very useful to understand some of the experiences that you have shared with us.
Thank you.
I had two specific questions on the power of appreciative inquiry. Typically, what happens is that one of the premise that we use in this is positive framing. And at times, what happens is that people, while there are certain negatives that need to be resolved in a change management scenario, obviously the positive framing element kind of ignores some of those elements, which obviously needs to be presented in a format where we are able to convert that into something where the person understands is also feedback that would be necessarily required for a change. Because when we're changing it, everything is not hunky-dory, everything is not the greatest of how things happen. And also the time that would be required, because it's a fairly in-depth analysis. So when you get involved in something like this, the level and depth of engagement becomes very high. And these in a corporate may become serious challenges, because one is we are looking at the results of it or the impact of a certain exercise or an OD exercise, for example, assuming that we make sure that we take it as an organizational change and management initiative, and the time and effort involved and the depth of inquiry that needs to be done. So from a practical perspective, obviously you've done this. So just wanted to hear from you as to how we can tackle these two challenges.
See, no matter how the challenging the context is, when you begin with the positives and you discover the positives which are at play here, which we say understand the power of the life-giving force of a system. It's like saying when you are treating disease, we have Dr. Sangwan here. Let's say you're dealing with somebody who's suffering from the 4th stage of cancer. are you going to discover more and more stronger ways of chemotherapy to kill the disease? Or will you also, at that moment, start turning to alternate therapy which will build health? Now, why are, for example, the topmost cardiologists, the topmost cancer specialists beginning to work with alternate healers? Because they are trying to build vitality and health in a system that is broken, that is diseased. That means they are focusing on the healthy cells and saying how to multiply those rather than destroying the cancerous cells.
Sure.
So when you start with what is giving health in the system and you are putting the light on that, you are giving people, you are bringing the focus on what's possible there. But when you empower yourself and begin with that, then you are now willing to look at the harsh reality which we are defining today of all the gaps that are existing between where we want to be and where we are. And being honest with ourselves in introspection and how, just like we have contributed to the earlier positives, how have we contributed also to the way we are talking about the problems? When there is an honest introspection after that, and then we have identified the top issues that we must solve. But then the third question, how can we use our positives to find answers to the top issues that we are facing? That connection, if we can help people to build that I have the positives, I have these issues, but how can I leverage my positives to find the answers to these? And that's not an easy conversation, that sometimes people are so full of the negative that they are not unable to give up that. And because there is a skepticism is too high, that's where you have to create space in their heart with that thing about saying, okay, instead of saying this cannot be done, can we replace the word cannot with maybe? And that's where, creating that sense of learning community. That's why the study missions I talked about earlier, sending people off in an absolutely hopeless situation, asking them to go and learn from others and then come back and invoke your positives to say, if they could do it, why can't we? And so I think that's a very
powerful and compassionate idea. It suggests that learning from and caring for our mothers or maternal figures can provide this.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I think someone else wants to ask the question now. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Paul, you could go ahead with your question, please.
Narendra Hariom. Narendra is our the chief sevak of CORD, Chinmaya Organization of Rural Development. Yeah, go ahead, Narendra.
No, I just have a just say once you know it, that we work in rural communities, the type of top-down model of the development, which is like globally nowadays, and where when we know the power of people or the communities, when we actively engage them in this whole process of their empowering development. But unfortunately, you look at the sustainable development frameworks globally, still people are just kept at that end of that people who end up as a beneficiary, not as a partner. So how to at the larger ecosystem, because that's like a few people decide fate of so many people, but people do have a power to bring that change. So how to initiate and build or make those processes more robust in the community with a larger system change. Yeah.
I want to refer to two experiments. CORD itself, your work is very powerful. It's a fantastic case study, the way you have impacted people. But I want you to also learn from two other similar efforts, but of a much larger scale. One is the Anand movement of the cooperative movement of the farmers in which we were involved. Narendra, we worked in Aisha Consulting. We trained 1,000 change agents at the village level. These 1,000 people conducted thousands of training programs in total quality management involving millions of farmers. Farmers and their families used to come and pay 10 rupees a day those days to attend that training. And it was a continuous program in Anand of implementing. And the bacteria level in the milk used to be of the higher kind. It was not matching international standards, but thanks to the huge effort. Anand was the first company in India, from the Amul factory, we started sending people to Japan for training, workers, blue-collared workers. Farmers farmer-run organization, but they invested in this whole effort to improve and to learn and to develop. And they were able to solve the problem of the bacteria. So huge. So I don't have time. By the way, they have published a book on quality management based on the work that we had done with them. It's a very beautiful book. And the other thing I want to say, and then I'll keep quiet because we are closing, we come to closure, is the power of the Swadhyay movement. Pandurang Shastri Athavale. And the millions of farmers in this country that were transformed with the power. And on that, you should watch Shyam Benegal's film if you haven't watched, called Antarnath. That beautiful film of transforming the community through the Swadhyay movement is an extraordinarily powerful example of what is possible. And I just, a couple of days back, I met a Swadhyay who was telling me about how that movement is still alive and working.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, sir, since we are coming at the close, however, there is one very interesting question by one of the PTTM students, and if I may quickly ask that. So Aman Gupta says that there is something like appreciative inquiry, which you got to know today, but there are no appreciative examination because mostly in exams, teachers tend to find what students do not know. And can we expect appreciative exams? Aman, I hope you are here.
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. I think maybe we should change the whole approach, and I'll encourage all our faculty that make an experiment. Ask the student, what are the questions you would like to ask yourself in an area that you deeply care about and are interested in? And tell us about the depth of your endeavor to understand that and what you have known and accomplished. And tell us how far your journey is. By the way, Vesti Banaji will recall from Tata Motors days, and we continued in Eicher, we used to have one aspect we used to measure, capacity to go into depth. We would ask in the interviews while hiring GETs and later on management students to say, pick up the topic of your choice in the interview. And we will ask you more and more questions about that to understand how deep you have gone in something you care about. It could be tennis, it could be yoga, it could be astrophysics. It doesn't matter what the subject is. How deep have you gone into what you care for? I think that's a good approach to say whether the student, once you get deeply interested, whether you get inspired or not. So, but yes, a very good way to say, I think it's a challenge for us faculty on how to design a evaluation system to honor this part. But thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this session here at session 4 on an adventure in learning with Anil sir. And I'm so grateful and honored to have everybody asking these wonderful questions, and it's really added to our learning. And thanks once again, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fantastic session.
Amazing session, as
As
always.
always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always.
Great.
Again, Anil, for
Thank
the
you so much.
Thank you, Anil.
Thank you
very
for
much.
everybody's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil.